Welcome to the EZCODE Projects Series toaster video number 8. In this video, we'll complete our list from the last video. If you have not done so already, please complete the previous EZCODE Projects toaster series videos. Those of you that have done so may continue. Remember that all you have to do is type as I do. Just pause the video or slow down the speed when needed to catch up. Understanding comes later. Let's begin. In the last video, we completed a great deal of our toaster-nator for the logic. So let's start this video by adding a bit of bling to our view. Let's open up our toaster file in VS Code. I'll open up the window, open folder, projects, EZCODE, wherever you keep it, open the toaster directory. And there we go, we have our code here. And we're gonna start by opening up the view HTML file. So go ahead and open that up in the tab to the right. And I'm just going to get rid of some extra space that I had in my file. If you had any extra space there, you can remove it. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up the view container right here. And we're going to add another div. And we'll give that an attribute class of header. And I'll open up that div. And inside we're going to create a span, which is just another type of DOM element where these will be in line. So if we had two of them, even though they have a next line here, they would both be side by side in the browser. So we can add functionality by just using different descriptive elements. So we have a span here, and we're going to capital everything here, and we're going to say toaster-nator. And now I'm just going to open up a little bit of space here. Oops. And I'm going to put a little space here just so I can differentiate between this and this. So you can see here while we're at it, we have a div and we have 1, 2, 3 children of this div. So we can do things to the view container that will help us guide these 3 items. We want them to stack on top of each other for one thing. So header and then toasters and then toasted, and we want them to scale width-wise 100%. So let's go ahead and save our work. And let's just go, let's see, the next thing we're going to do is actually add some style. So let's get some style to it before we check it out. And you know what, let's just go check it out. Let's just go to the browser and let's go see what the browser gives us. We'll go File, Open File. Projects, this is the one, view HTML. Make sure you open your view HTML, and there we go. So we have, there's the toaster-nator header right there without any style. It doesn't know where to go. It just kind of pops right in there. It's getting squished up there at the top. So this is where it is. This is what we're going to add style to. So let's go back over here, and we're going to open up the style CSS, and we're going to create a new class, just like the header class we created. I'm just going to scroll down to project CSS, and I'm going to keep it at the top of this area because it's a header, and it's that way in the HTML, and now it's that way in the CSS. So we have a header class, and what do we do to the divs? Just almost all of them, we're going to do it. We're going to make them display flex, and we're going to align items center, and then justify content center. Now both of these, when just used with the normal display flex property, it makes a row. So this is going to align it on the vertical axis, and this is going to align it on the horizontal axis. So it's centered both X and Y. If we flipped it and said flex direction column, these two are going to invert. So just FYI. Now we're going to keep going just like our HTML. The CSS is nested as well, and we have a span in there. So we're gonna grab that element by its element tag because the header only has one span, and so we don't need to add a class when we don't have to. Now we're gonna add a font family of, and you know what? Let's just go ahead and create some variables so we can change these later if you feel like it. So these aren't created yet, but I'm going to pretend like they are. So it's going to be, you always have to have a double hyphen with them, and then after that it's up to you. I like to do it this way where it says what it's part of and then what's the attribute that we're describing. So we have a font family, we have a font size, var, again, we're going to do, what is it, header, can you almost guess, font size, that's what we're going to call it. And then justify content, I have something spelled wrong here, there the T was, justify, there we go. And then this is going to be header, justify content. So you can see the property names, and we're going to locate it under the header. This is just the words that we're using to describe these variables, and we're going to put these at the top, just like we did for the other variables. So I'll type this out if you haven't done so already. Make sure you get all this in here for the header. Pause the video and get that typed out, and we're just going to scroll up to the root right here, and let's start putting them. We're just going to go down here a little bit because we need to use one of the variables later on, family. Now here's where we actually put the value, fantasy. So that's an actual font that should be in the Google Chrome browser. Header font size, let's go with 65px, and then header font weight. These are the ones we just created at the bottom. This is where we describe them, and then we use them down there by saying var. So make sure you get these in here exactly like that. And now we can save our work. Let's go ahead and save the style. Make sure your HTML is saved as well. And let's just go over here and refresh the browser. And boom, we have a much nicer title header here. It's getting moved around and bounced around a bit, and that's because as things get added to these divs, they expand because we didn't tell them to stay put. So we want the toaster-nator always at the top, and then the toasters, we want to see them. In this case, we'll just do maybe just a box that has at least 3 levels and then scrolls, and then we'll do the same for the toast, but I think we can get about 2 layers on that depending on your screen size. So now that we have a nice title, and what else can we do here? How about putting a toaster right next to the title? So let's think about that for a minute. What if we had like some branding here and we just said, let's put a toaster here? How would we put a toaster there? So let's go back to our view HTML. Let's go to that one right there. And can you guess how we're going to put a toaster right there? Now currently we add our toaster-nators via the JavaScript code, but we also have already described to the browser that we've made our own custom component. So we can actually just drop in a toaster-nator right here into the HTML DOM. And now let's just save our work. And let's go back over to the browser and we'll kick this baby off. Boom, there's our toaster. And what's amazing is it works. So we have our custom described element, works just fine right there. However, it's a bit big. So let's shrink it a bit. So I'm just going to come over here because we can find it easy. It's in the header. There it is. And I don't need to highlight this. I just wanted to be on it right now because we're going to go down here and we're going to grab the root and we're going to find the toaster height, and it's right here. Oh, that's toaster height. Here it is right there. Now this is going to change all of them, but we want to manipulate this one for now, so we don't care about the rest of them. So we can just arrow down if we want to, and let's see when we get to a really good kind of size here. 70px, that's a nice round number. It looks pretty good right there. The thumbs, everything looks like it's working real nice. So let's stick with 70. We'll stick with 70 for that. And then let's see. Let's add a bit of height to our header. So let's go up here and say, what's our height going to be? Let's just guesstimate here and we'll say 160px. Let's see, did that change anything? Let's see. You can see that the header height really isn't doing anything right now, but that's most likely, there's a culprit in here, but we'll figure that out in a little bit. So we'll just leave that off for now because we're going to get to that. And what about justify content center? Actually, it already has justify content center in the header, so we're okay there. Let's give our toaster a little bit of margin on the bottom to kind of bump it up so it's in line with this title. And to do that, we just need to come in here. Now we did highlight, and this is the area of the highlighted element. And we're going to say margin, bottom, and let's go with 15px. Yeah, that moved it up real nice. And then let's give it some space between the title. So I'll say margin, right, and it's going to be 10px. There we go. And then let's add a little pizzazz to it. So let's do a transform. And we're going to transform, we're going to rotate. That's the transform we're going to call. And we're going to go 345 right there, degrees. Make sure I spell that right. So rotate 345 degrees. And we're going to type this out later on. So, okay, we got a nice little rotation. It looks good. Let's see, we can even do, what does this do? We can tip it that way if we wanted to, but let's just keep it that way. So let's also give our header a background color and a bit more style. So let's play around with that for a little bit. We'll just say the header, and what do we want to do here? We want to do a background color, and I already have one picked out, so we're going to go with the hexadecimal 00E2FF. Okay, we got a little bit of pizzazz going on there. And we're going to add a border radius of 20px. Let's see what that looks like. And let's go with a border, of 1px solid gray. All right, so we've done some things in the browser. We can see what it looks like exactly. And if we wanted to, we could just copy paste that straight into our code. That's the easiest way to go about doing this. But also, let's see. While we're looking at this, we're going to want to get this expanded. We want this toaster header to be all the way across, and we also need to do some work on these other items because they're expanding too much. So we're going to have to get a control of that. And just in a little bit, we'll go over that when we make these changes to our header. We'll make some changes to the view container and body to really cement some really good looking design out here. So let's go ahead and put these changes that we've done into our style CSS. So where are we going to be? We're going to be in the header. And real quick while we're at it, we're going to jump up here and we're just going to add another tag here for body. So we don't want to hit the HTML and body, we want to hit the body specifically. And we're just going to add a little bit of padding. And we're going to say var body padding, which we haven't created yet, but we will. And then we're going to want to include the padding in the computation for its width. So by doing that, we're going to say box sizing, border box. And that just means the padding is going to be included. So if we said width of 100px and we had 10px in padding next to it, the width is going to be computed with the padding, which is what we usually want. So this is a very handy property you'll use a lot on divs, and just keep it in your memory. Now we're just going to scroll down real quick to the header and see what kind of work we have to do down here. So we added a few different properties here. We added the background color, and we're going to make that a var as well. So let's call it header. We got a bunch of header properties, and we're going to do background color. Now we had to do, what was the next one? It was border radius. And the border radius, that's going to be on a var as well. Let's do header, and then you guessed it, border radius. And then we're going to do a border var again, and it's going to be header border. So we know what it is. All right, well, that's going to add some really cool things. But as well, one thing that we did, if you recall, is we had to change the height of the toaster. And so we're in the context of header, which means we can target the toaster class that's in the header, which won't target the global toaster class. So we're in the header, we can do some changes here that won't be affected, and we'll make a variable to just describe those. So we'll go with the header toaster width, and then we'll go with the width of var header toaster width. And let me just change this real quick. I meant height. So header toaster height and header toaster width, that's great. And then we're going to add a few things. Remember, we had margin bottom, and we'll just leave this at a static value here, margin bottom 15, and we'll do a margin right of 10 px, and then we'll do that transform we just talked about. Rotate, we saw what that does, and it was 345 degrees. Okay, so we had that there, and for a minute, I don't think we have to target the thumbs as they might target correctly, but we'll stick with what we got now, and let's go add the following properties that we all added here. So we're just going to scroll up here, make sure you get all this working here. And you got the body here, body padding, that's one of them we're going to have to add as well. And really, I'm going to start at the top for body padding because body is kind of global. And our value is going to be 10 px for that. And then I'm just going to enter and make a space there. And then we're going to go down here. There seems to be, as I'm looking at here, this right here is an old piece of code. Don't worry about typing that out. And we have so it should look like this. Toaster bodies, we have toaster width. This is all the stuff that was there before. We just added these, and we're going to continue adding some more headers. So I'm just going to come down here and say header, background, color. Now, the one I just deleted at the top, let's see, we're going to do this first, 00E2FF. I deleted this up here. That was something you probably didn't have in your code. It was just a test that I had remained in there. So don't worry about even deleting that. It's probably not in there on yours, but if it is, it should be as well deleted. So let me just go back to that. I don't think you had these in here, toaster's min height. Okay, so now that we're here, we have the background color. Let me see if I can bring that back. We just typed that one out, and now we're going to go header border radius. Typing again and again is the way to go. It's the practice. Do as much of it as you can. Even if you're slow at it, it's okay. Speed isn't necessary to understand programming. So there we go. We have header border radius, header border. We did add the body padding. We should have everything here. So let's just go ahead and we will save our file. And let's go back over here and we're going to refresh. And we can see that something is going on right here with the toaster. So let's see what's going on here and see if we can change that. Let's see, I'm just going to right click. And if you remember the toaster, let's go back over there. So we have the toast width and height. I think I'm header height. This is what, if I do a find here, there's only one because I didn't get them in there yet. So let's get them in there now. And we're going to do something very similar to this. So let's just take what's above here and we'll copy it. Okay, we're going to put it right back down here in header. I'm going to do a little bit of space so we know what we're working on here. And remember, it was header toaster height, so we need to change it to this. And ours was 70 px. Now we don't need this because we're going to reuse the same ratio, but this one was header toaster width. Now we have to calculate based on the header toaster height, so we'll just go here and say header, and then the same calculation is going to happen with the same ratio because that shouldn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter. So we have, this has to be above, and this is why I put header down here. You can't grab onto a variable that doesn't exist yet. And that's what we're doing here. We're grabbing this variable, so it needs to exist, just like this one has to be above right there. And so now we have toaster header height and toaster width. So let's go ahead and save this again. Make sure you get these changes in here. And let's just scroll over here and we'll hit the thing again. And there's our toaster. So we need to do a little bit more management on what's going on here. The next portion of this video will focus on getting this to span all the way across and stop moving around as it's growing. But our toaster, as we can see, is looking pretty good, and we'll also correct our thumbsticks over here. Okay, so let's go back over here and let's start working on that portion. Okay, so for the thumb lever that's on the toaster, the reason why that's not working now is because before we were using the root property, which was toaster width, when we were messing around with it in the browser, which is what it's using here. And now we have header toaster width. So it's a different width that we have to use to do our computation with. So it's not going to work the same way. So we kind of have to drill our way down to the same item before making our change to it. So let's go back up to our header, and we got to do a little bit of work inside the toaster here. So we're just going to space open, and we're going to call front with an R, and we're going to kind of just stair step our way down here. And then remember, we had a face, and then we had an input, and then we had, scroll up here, we had ampersand, colon, double colon, and then we had the web kit, let's see, slider, and it was the thumb right there. And now we can target what we needed to do, which is width. And you know what, I'm gonna start with height. I'm gonna try and keep to my word on that one. Height, it was a calc with parentheses, and then var with parentheses. And then here we go, we had header toaster width, and that was divided by 20, perhaps. We'll see, make sure that's still good. And we put a 0 px so that it converts to px at the end. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to get rid of this Explorer here on the left so we can just focus. And now it's the same thing, calc var, type it out, get used to typing all this out, header toaster width, and if you've noticed what I just did here, I did it again. Let's see, header toaster width. Actually, maybe we're making that calculation on the same thing all the way. Let's check before I continue this. Is that what we're doing down here? Okay, toaster width, yeah, it's the same thing. I didn't know if it was height or width. I've made that mistake several times. So we are going to go with the same width, space. This was well, this is 20, and this one's 5. So then same thing, 0 px. So we have a 5 for the height and a 20 for the width. We'll do a semicolon there. And before we proceed, let's just make sure that we had this right. So we're going to go ahead and save this file. I'm just going to slide over here, and we're going to hit, okay, good. It's looking pretty good. Everything works. These still look the same, so we're good there. Okay, so make sure you have this section added as well to the header, or inside the toaster of the header. And now we can target that thumb. Great, that took care of that little piece that we had to go. So now we have to do a little bit more heavier work. So we need to add some boundaries to our containers to make them look awesome, give them some awesomeness. And so we have to add some restrictions to the toasters div as well as the toasted div. But first, we're going to use something that we haven't used in any of the series before, and it's of the view container. We're going to say, hey, instead of display flex, we're going to use a different type of display. So let's find the view container, which is way up here in our default CSS. And what we're going to do here is, let's see, can we just delete, let's delete all of this in the view container, and now we're going to do a display grid. And with grid, there's a bunch of properties just like display flex. So this one has grid, template, rows. Don't worry about understanding this right now, but we have, let's look at this real quick. Think of these, how are these going to be? Well, this is going to be one column on the page because we want it to expand left to right all the way. So these are considered rows. Here's row 1, row 2, and row 3. We have 3 rows in here. That's what we're matching up in the next value here. So we want the header to be 160 px. Now we want the heat or the toaster area. We're going to use this right here, 1 frame, but we're going to make it 2 frames, and then we're going to make the last one 1 frame. And that just means the browser doesn't know. This is a very specific number. It knows exactly how many pixels this is. It's 160 pixels. So the header is going to take up a certain amount of room, period. Now, depending on your display, you might have a much higher, or the height of your display might be much larger than the small laptop I'm using here. So it's going to say, well, this is going to be of the remaining room that's left after 160 pixels. This one's going to get a little bit more precedence, so it's going to be a little bit bigger. It's going to be 2 parts or 2 frames of whatever's left of the 3 frames in this sense. It'll kind of add these up and say, well, there's 3 frames left, so divide it by 3, 1/3 goes to this row and 2/3 will go to this row. Something like that. And now in between each one of them, we want to have a little bit of space. So instead of doing margin, when we do a grid, we can give it a gap. And we'll just give a fixed amount on that of a gap of 10 px in between each row. And then we also, well, we might as well keep this together. Let's just go right here below rows because it's grid, template. And now we want to do columns. And we want to say, just like a table, like you know how many rows we're going to have? 3. And we only want 1 column, so we're going to say take up the entire room for the column. Now there's just another section we got to do here, which is we want to include any type of padding if there happens to be any. So we'll just give it a border box on the box sizing, and we need to give it a height of 100% because we want it to grow to 100% of whatever container it's located in, which is the body, and the body is already 100%, so it should get full window. And then we should get, let's get rid of that line there. That's all we have to do for view container. So it's kind of, let's just go back here to where I had deleted it. You know, it's very similar to the size of what we had there before, but now we've switched to grid. And we'll see what that means in a little bit. Right now, we're going to scroll down to toasters. So that's way down here. And for toasters, let's see, we're going to go in here and we're going to say display flex. That's great. Padding top, we got that. Padding left, yes. Flex wrap. Now we're going to add a few things here to get this right. So I'm just going to open this up and we're going to do justify content, and we're going to say space evenly. There we go. And then let's see, we got the flex wrap, we're going to get rid of min height. So let's get rid of that for a little bit. Okay, so now we just have justify content. We're going to give it a border box. Oops. We're going to give it a box sizing of border box. Okay, and then we're going to give it an overflow X. We're going to say auto, and then border radius is going to be 20px, and border by itself is 1px solid gray. Okay, so now we have the toaster set up. Let's come up here to, or the toasters div. Something very similar we're going to do to toasted. So let's see, we got the flex wrap, we got the paddings. Yep, we already have the overflow here. So let's just add the box sizing of border box, and we're going to give it a border radius of 20px and a border of 1px solid gray. All right, very similar things that we did there, and this should be all we need to do. So let's go ahead and hit save, and we'll just scroll over here and see what kind of magic came out of that. Okay, so our boxes are good. You can see we got our header, we got our, let's see, that's already scrolling because we're bigger now. What about this one? That's nice and scrolling too. And we can see this is spacing, but I can see something right now is this doesn't look like it's spacing correctly. So let's just open that up and we'll say toasted. Did we get the, and we didn't. So we're going to add one more property to that one, and it's going to be justify content space, just like the other one, evenly. And then it fills in, it just looks nicer. So let's go back and make that one change. And that was in the toasted. And let's just put it right by the flex wrap. Justify content space evenly. Okay, let's save that change. And let's just go over there and we're gonna just load it up. Boom, there they go. We have our toaster up here. We got our label. That's looking pretty good. We got a little bit more order to our chaos, which is always good. Okay, so just remember, if you have an issue where your rendered browser might look different, just rewind the video and check your spelling and syntax. So let's now get our toasters to fade in and out. I think that would look a little bit nicer than this little choppy kind of thing that's going on here. So let's go back to the style CSS in our toaster class. Okay, so for this portion, we're going to add a little bit of animation. And to do that, all we have to do is find the toasters class right here. Okay, so we got the toaster. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add an animation to it. And it's as simple as animation fade, capital I, lowercase n, 1s, linear. And all that does is run our method that we haven't made yet for 1 second over a linear algorithm. And before we make this, there's one more thing we got to do, and it's the toaster that's in the header. We don't want animation on that, or it's going to be appearing just like the other ones were. So we want to come down here to toaster and we want to say animation none. So make sure header toaster has animation none, and then the toaster class has animation just like this, fade capital I, lowercase n, 1s linear. And now we're going to go make the fade in. Like this could have been just butter, but we want to name it something that we know. I just want you to know that we made this name up. So we'll scroll to the bottom, and this is where we're going to keep this part. I've already typed this out here, but what it is the keyframes is the keyword we're going to use here. So think of this as like function, and then this is function name, fade in. This is where we get that name. We made that. And now we're just going to say from, and the property we want to change. We want to start at opacity 0, meaning you can't see it, and we want to animate to an opacity of 1. So it's going to take the time of 1 second could have been 2s, 3s, 5s, and it's going to divide that over the course of 0 to 1 to make sure we get a nice little fade. So that's pretty simple to get a fade in like this. So let's go ahead and hit save, and we'll come over here and we'll just hit start here, and there we go. We got a fade in of the toasters. Our toaster appears not fading in, and we'll load that again to make sure that's true. Yep, it's just there. And that's great. Now we got a simple fade in. That's pretty cool. So let's return to our style CSS, and for the fade out, it's a bit different. So there's a little bit more to do with timing. So when we call to remove the toaster from the DOM, it just does it immediately. So we first want to start a transition, wait for the transition to stop, and then remove the item. So we'll create a new CSS class called removing. So let's just, it's a global thing here. We'll just put it right above our keyframes, and we'll say removing. That's our new class, and it's going to be an animation of fade, capital O, lowercase ut. So we're going to make that one as well. Linear. Okay. So now that we're doing this, all we have to do, let's just copy paste our fade in, and we'll make the fade out right below it. So you understand what to change, right? Not keyframes, that's a keyword. Right here, fade, capital O, lowercase ut, and from, we're going to invert it. So from 1 to 0. So we have a fade in and we have a fade out. And we could use this on any element that we want to. And we can get a lot more complex than this. So we have an animation fade out 1 second linear. So we know it's going to take 1 second. That's something to know. And let's go ahead and save our work here. And we're going to head over to the code.js file. And now we have to do a little bit of work here. So here it is. Here's the initialize method. So when do we want to fade out? Well, it's not in the beginning here when we're creating. It's not when we're appending and toasting. It's when we're removing. So here, what we're going to do is, I'm just going to go above that, and we'll start it here. We'll say toaster, and toaster at this point is just a DOM element. So we have all the DOM element properties, and we have a class list, and we want to add a new class to it. And guess what the name of that class is? It's our removing class that we just created. And now the next piece is we're going to add an event listener to the toaster. And so we're just going to say toaster again, another just a DOM element, and we have add event listener. There it is. And it takes a name of something it already knows about in this sense. So look at all these different events we can listen to: cancel, blur, click, whatever, can play. And the one that we want is animation end. So hit enter there. Oops, that didn't work. I'm going to restart this because I want to make sure I spell this right. So it's animation end. So here, just like anything else in JavaScript, it's just going to be a callback that says, hey, add this listener, and when you're done animating whatever animations you have, run this method or this function. So we're going to do arrow function. Now we need another line. So we're going to do enter, curly braces, enter, and then just put a semicolon there. And all we got to do is we're going to take this here, get rid of the space there. I'm just going to put it inside this. So what we're doing is we're adding the class, which triggers the animation. As soon as that gets added, boom, animation, fade out, 1 second linear. Now, when that's done, then we want to come in here and say, when you're done animating, remove and then clear the timeout. Okay, so let's check this out. Let's go ahead and hit save, and let's cross our fingers, and let's just go over here and say go and see what happens. So we're looking for any of these when they're done. Oh, I saw one there. Did you see one? Boom, that one's gone. Since we have static orders right now, it's kind of interesting to watch this because it gets to a point that it's the same thing over and over and over again. So that's the fade out we were looking for. That seems to be working. Fantastic. We got our fade in and fade out. So let's add a fade in CSS to our toast too, and invert the toast list being added so that it starts at the top, right? If we go way down here, that's where they're getting added and they're getting all choppy. So we want a little fade in too, and we want to see them up here at the top. We want this list populating from the top. So not too much to do now. So let's go back over this way, and we're going to grab the style CSS, and you might as well just let's just grab our removing line right there. We'll just copy paste that and go up to toasted. Where's toasted? Here it is. And we look, and this is the container, this is the toast. So we'll come in here and we'll just say, just be careful on this copy paste because it's fade in. So capital I, lowercase n, not fade out. I just happened to copy that one. So that's good here. Animation fade in 1 second linear. All right, now we're just going to go ahead and save this piece of it. So make sure you got this on there for the toasted div. And then we're never taking the toast out. So we don't need a fade out on there, but we do need something to change the way in which we add the toast. And that is in the toaster.js. So let's go to toaster.js, close that Explorer back out again. And I'm looking for toasted. There it is, toasted, but I want the toasted method. Let's see if we can find it here. Toasted method, here it is. So we grab the container, we make the div, we set the background color to its intensity, and then I already have it here, but this was append. So you need to change append to prepend, and prepend will put it exactly like you're saying. Append is to the end, prepend is in the beginning. So just put output prepend toast and make sure you save your file. And let's go ahead and refresh our browser now. Let's go ahead and refresh that. Now let's watch what's going on down here. Okay, we can see the prepending. It's happening over here. You can see these things, they're animating in as well. And we have, let's see, let's just close this out, and what do we got here? We got our scroll. This one doesn't scroll right now because there's just not enough toasters. And there won't be, because now it's in that cycle of there's no real randomness to these right now because we just have a list of 5 items that are in here. But looking really good. So we've added a bunch of bling to our toaster-nator web page, and it's working fantastic. Our toasters can now handle our static order system with ease and in style. And so in the next video, we'll update our order system to add way more randomness to the orders it generates. If you enjoyed this video, click like and then subscribe buttons to get notifications of new content. Thank you for exploring programming with me, and I'll see you in the next video.